Stories help us to understand the world around us. They allow us to laugh. They allow us to cry. They give us the ability to feel and provide us with an outlet to heal. Join me as I get to know some of the amazing people behind the stories that we read in order to truly discover the story that has been hidden within each of us. My name is Bree Smith, and this is the AuthorPush Talkshow. Welcome to the AuthorPush Talk Show. I am your host, Bree Smith, and on today's episode, we have two incredible guest authors who have a passion for seeing people's lives transformed and healed from their own personal baggage. Our first guest is Avalon Soulette Brown. She grew up in the Newark, New Jersey area. She is a registered nurse for over 38 years and has worked in the field of infection prevention. She is the author of 5 children's books, called Mommy, Why Do I Have a Cold? My Dad and the Big Machine, That Needle Is Not For Me, Then There's a Mouse in the House, and The Church That I Love. She also has written an incredible memoir, which we'll talk about today, called It Was the Devil All Along. And she has written a bibliography called My Two Bishops and Mother. Lastly, she is the co-author of 6 anthologies, such as Saved and Single, Struggle audiobook, Finding Joy in the Journey, Daughter of a King, and The Pivot. When Miss Brown is not writing or working as a nurse, she loves to spend time going to church and being outdoors. So please welcome our first guest, Miss Avalon Soulette Brown. Thank you so much for being here today, Miss Avalon. It is an incredible honor and a pleasure. And
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So we are going to talk about your memoir today. It was the devil all along. You know, I love hearing about that testimony and that story. So I just wanted, can you just give the people a little bit of the background and synopsis of the story? Yes, ma'am.
Well, what made me want to write this is it's all about, my memoir is about my nursing career. And because I was going through so much struggle and I started nursing back in the 80s, and I was in a predominantly Caucasian hospital, I went through a lot of different things that I felt that was unfair, you know, a lot of unfair assignments, just always a struggle with management, always, you know, in some kind of conflict with management. And I just felt like, okay, so much is going on. You know, I kept saying, you know, one day I'm gonna put all this stuff in the book because nobody will believe that this actually goes on in nursing, because, you know, nursing always has been looked at as such a glorious thing. The nurses in the white cap, but nobody ever hears about the dark side of nursing. So I said, I'm gonna put this in a book one day. You know, it took some years, but, you know, I finally put it together.
Amen. Amen. I know you had talked about in the book when you kind of had a self-actualization moment, because you said you would always sit there and like blame them for what was going on. But you said that finally the Lord had spoke to you and was kind of telling you about some stuff that you had going on. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, because growing up, you know, I knew I had sort of an attitude, and although, you know, I knew I was a good nurse, sometimes, you know, I was resistant. Also, you know, I had that kind of attitude that, you know, I went into work like nobody's going to walk over me. You know, nobody's going to push me around. I know you're giving me unfair assignments. I know, you know, this is going on. But, you know, every time they came at me, I came back at them, you know. So it was down so many years, I said, probably almost like 35 years already. And you know, I went out with my knee, and at one point I'm at home, I'm like, you know, why am I always going through these situations? You know, how come, you know, I just cannot get along with management? It's always something that there's, you know, going on. It's always something. And I just heard, you know, the spirit say, you know, you have the power to change the perception of what people think of you, because it's always like Avalon's the problem person. It's like I was always the problem. So I had to take a deeper look and see what the spirit was trying to really tell me, because it was like, you have the possession. But I said, well, Lord, in order to do this, I would have to be able to start all over with all new people, because, the job that I was at the time when I got that kind of revelation, I was having issues there too. So even though I was having these problems with all Caucasian, when I went into an all Black environment, it did not stop. So when he said, I have the power to change people's perception, I said, okay, the only way I can do this, I'd have to start brand new with all new people. And I was out of work for about 4 weeks with my knee. And when I went back to work, everybody had been shifted. All management had been shifted. It's like he just shifted everybody around, and it was all new people. So I realized I had to go in with a whole nother attitude. He showed me, if I go in with a whole nother attitude, because I was getting more into church, if I was putting out a little more love and a little more peace, and rather just every time they come at me, hold my peace, I could change the whole perception. And this is what actually happened. I actually ended up with peace on the job when I looked within myself and changed me.
Amen. I love that because I know personally I had went through that too once upon a time on my job, where people would look at me a certain way because of how I carried myself. And I think a lot of times us as people, we don't realize, we think it's always been, oh, it's you,
Yeah.
But we don't ever sit back and take the time to be like, you know what, maybe it's really me, maybe I'm the common denominator. And what is it that I need to do to fix within myself to make sure that I am putting that out, putting that type of love and, I'm putting all that back out into the world. So thank you so much for that. So I also wanted to ask you, how long did it take you to write your memoir?
It actually took me 3 months because the first time I went out with my knee, I went out twice. The first time I went out with my knee, I'd had arthroscopic surgery. And I was at church, and the mother of the church was like, okay, you got all this time on your hand. You're always talking about you're going to write this book. Now's the time to sit down and write this book. And once I started, I just like every day, I was just writing. And, it's like everything I had went through from the time I became a nurse up until 2010, I wrote everything. It was almost like, and I wasn't even keeping notes, but all these things was coming to me and I was putting it down in the book. And the way I wrote the book, I showed how, that's why it ended up being, it was the devil all along. I kind of showed how the devil was like I was allowing that spirit to come out and jump out. And every time they come at me, I kind of showed how with those situations, how the spirit would take you, the devil can get into you and, have you act like that. When you see those spirits coming at you, then you already in that mode of a fight mode, because that's how I was going to work. It's like, okay, I know the day is going to be such and such. So I already had my mind in that mode that when I go to work, I'm going to have to fight, which I didn't have to have that mind. So in the book, I kind of show how with these situations, how the devil can come at you, how people can come at you and you not realizing. So you ready because you already in that mode too. He done got in you as much as he is in them.
Amen. Oh man, that is so powerful. I love it. So I do have another question. So when we feel this way, how do we combat that? A lot of us, we know about spiritual warfare, what I mean? But like, how do we combat that in our job or even in relationships that we have with other people? How do we combat that spirit?
Well, what helped me to combat it is staying, being in church, listening to the teachings, because, I realized when those feelings, when I feel that feeling come up, I also have the power to squash it back down. I learned to recognize, here it comes, you know, like, okay, she done made me mad. Okay, but even though I have it in my mind, I don't need to act on it. I don't have to act because the power of God has shown me, you know, squash it. You can squash it before it comes out. And
Amen.
that's what I learned to do.
Amen. That's powerful. I know, you know what keeps coming up? Self-control, learning to
Yes.
exercise self-control. And that's one of the fruits of the spirit, you know, being able to exercise ourselves, even our mouths, you know, just discipline ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, that is so powerful. So thank you. So when did you realize you wanted to become a writer? Has it always been a passion for you, or was it more so like, you know, during your journey, you were kind of like, oh, this would be cool? Because you have written a lot of books.
Right. It's like once I started and had the first book out, it just started coming. I guess I felt like maybe this is a talent that something that God was bringing at. As I grew in God, he was bringing out a talent that I had in me, because I never liked to write when I was in school. I hate writing papers. When I was in nursing school, hated writing papers. Writing was just not my thing. And this is just something that it's like, now that it's in me, I can't stop. I can't stop.
Amen. I feel you. I love to write too. But you know, I've always had a passion for writing, even since I was a kid. I would always write poems and songs and little short stories. So I always knew I wanted to be an author, but it took until, you know, the pandemic, for, you know, when the world got sat down, for me to be like, you know what, I'm gonna start writing. And the Lord is the one that actually prompted me to write this book. So that is so powerful. So I also wanted to ask, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
My younger self?
Yeah. Like, what advice would you give your younger self?
Because I can say my daughter is probably my younger self, because she's now in nursing. So I had to really tell her, like, you know, when you going in there, don't go in with an attitude. No matter what they do, it's not about what they're doing, it's about what you do. You have the ability to not just react to everything they do. You have the ability, keep your mouth closed, because I know as a younger person, I did have a quick attitude. I was on the mean side. I didn't speak to people, and none of this changed until I actually it took God to change me. So it's like I can look back and tell my daughter how not to be in nursing, because she's like that now. She got that quick mouth. She got that attitude. She ready to jump on it. So it's like, get some self-control, and you'll have peace on the job. When I look back, I could have had more peace on my job than I did. But as I look at it, I see everything they did, I wanted to be the opposite. If the group was doing something, I wanted to be the opposite. I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be that person. It's like, I guess I was just an antagonistic person back then.
Right. And you know what? I have a younger sister like that too. And she actually works for the company I used to work for back in the day. And I've been trying to coach her as well. Like, hey, you know, I know you may get angry, or certain people may frustrate you, but you can't always just run off at the mouth. You have to carry yourself, professionalism. And there's, you know, certain ways to handle things. And then, but I also been telling her too, hey, you know, you need to pray, you know, say a prayer, you know, make sure you have that armor of God on, you know what I mean? Before you go into those types of environments. But thank you so much. I mean, I just love it. I love hearing your story every time you talk about it. Because like I said, I really see me in that, because I used to be super angry and just take everything out, you know, on people and how I treated people and did things. But you know, how, with the Lord's help, you know, I've gotten better at that.
About their feelings,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much, Avalon. It was such a pleasure just interviewing you today. So thank you again.
And thank you again for having me.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye. Have a good day. Okay.